And now Kutztown University Athletics and KUR present to you this week's edition of the Golden Bear Beat. This weekly radio program brings to you an in-depth look at the week in sports around campus, including game highlights, player and coach interviews, and an analysis of recent sporting events. Live on campus, let's send it to our host, Adam Dobrowolski.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Golden Bear Beat. Your host, Adam Dobrowolski, here on this February 6, 2014, and we are, officially today going to begin the spring seasons. Yes, I'm not kidding. I know there's white stuff out there and really slippery conditions as well. I mean, I think it was more of me practicing my ice skating skills out there this morning, and you'd think more ice hockey would be the theme for anything sports related on a show today with what the weather's been like. But we are previewing the 2014 Kutztown softball season here on the Golden Bear Beat. We'll also take a look at KU basketball men's and women's side, update you on their past week, see where they stand, as they had games moved from yesterday to tonight. So we'll preview that. We'll update you also on KU swimming, KU indoor track and field, and KU wrestling as well as we continue through those winter seasons. But first, it is the beginning of the first KU spring season, and that is KU softball, the defending Division II runners-up, as they lost in the national championship game last Memorial Day in a memorable 2013 season that saw one of the best runs in Division II softball ever. The Golden Bears 23-21, heading into their final two regular season games. They would need wins just to clinch themselves a spot in the PSAC championship tournament. But in their final doubleheader of the regular season against East Stroudsburg, a 13-10 victory in Game 1 and 8-0 victory in Game 2, Kutztown made it to the PSAC championships with defeat Mercyhurst, Westchester, Bloomsburg, and Cal to win the school's ever first PSAC championship in softball. And the victory against Bloomsburg saw Kutztown come back with one final out against Cal, an extra inning victory just like what happened against Bloomsburg. Then in the NCAA Atlantic Regionals, an extra inning victory against West Virginia State. Then two wins over Bloomsburg, including the second one coming in extra innings. Kutztown then would defeat Westchester in the Super Regionals, sweeping the two games in a best-of-3 series, making it to the Division II softball championships, what many know as the World Series. Kutztown winning 3-1, 1-0 in a game that was against the top-ranked offense, power-wise, hitting, and then a 7-2 victory in the semifinals put Kutztown in the national championship game against Central Oklahoma. Kutztown down to its final out, tied things up at 2 in the bottom of the 7th. Unfortunately, though, a strikeout would send it into extra innings where Central Oklahoma would win 5-2 and give the Broncos a national championship. Kutztown in the last 2 years finishing among the top 4. They finished in the semifinals back in 2012, lost 2 games in a row to Valdosta State, the eventual national champions. And that's how Kutztown's season would come to an end 2 years ago. So a lot of expectations for this team and high hopes, obviously, with what's been the recent postseason success for the Golden Bears. Really been the peak of postseason success under head coach Judy Laws. And to begin our 2014 softball preview, earlier this week I sat down with Coach Laws as the team already has made its trip down to Pembroke, North Carolina. The season begins in Pembroke, Carolina today at 2 p.m. against UNC Pembroke. They'll play again at 6 p.m. against Francis Marion. This is really how Coach Laws and the crew like to do it. Getting in a few early tournaments. They'll do it again in mid-February for the Pioneer Classic at Tusculum College, February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. They'll get those 2 tournaments underway, and then for spring break, they'll head down for the Salem Invitational and the NTC College Spring Games that's a good way for the Golden Bears to get things started off before the PSAC slate for the regular season. But anyway, I sat down with Coach Laws, got a breakdown of the roster and everything you need to know for the 2014 season. Without further ado, here's the interview. Your thoughts on where it's been since last Memorial Day, getting so close to winning a national championship, having really 4 great leaders all graduate. Many of them obviously still have contact with the players, but having a new class of freshmen, having fall ball. Really, how has everything transpired so far over what's been nearly the last 9 months?
Kind of the same old. You leave in May, and then you're into summer camps and fundraising there, and then we come back in the fall, and you got your new kids in, and the returners coming back, and then because it's pretty much like a family, we see Wingnut, we see Lynchy, we see Bree, everyone that, and Isgro, well, a couple of them are still here finishing up out their degrees, and then in the fall we look, what do we have? Pitching, we look good. Infield, wow, all new faces, so a lot of reps, a lot of teaching. But some of those former players came back, at practices and would kind of stand with them and go over things, which really helped. And they're coming along. I can't say if we're going to be exactly as good, but we might be better, we might be worse. But they are working, I can tell you that. The players now, and they're they want to live up to what has been at Kutztown. So I'm anxious to get out and play and see again what do we got, what's good about the team, what's bad about the team, what do we work on, because again it becomes a whole process where it's a long season and it's really, you want to be good at the end of the season, and our goal as a team is to get better with each part of the season and be at your peak at the end.
Now, looking at this kind of from a perspective class by class, we'll start off with your senior class. You obviously have seniors who have been with the team over the last 2 years, back-to-back appearances in the Division II National Championships, one as a semifinalist, one as the national runner-up. You have Morgan Booth, you have Jackie Hetzler, you have Steph Curry. What do those seniors provide that can really help out just everyone else to keep things together? What might have they've learned from the 4 seniors last year that really helped them to know kind of how to handle the big picture from a player perspective?
I think, the idea that you have to really work hard for good things to happen. Expectations, you can have expectations, but you got to be willing to suit up and show up every day. I think just that if you believe in yourselves, we can reach whatever goal, is put out in front of us, and that there's going to be things or obstacles that we're going to hit, and you got to climb over them. And that's, no matter what season you are, and they, recognize that and lived through it last year. I think that will help always, as they explain to the younger teammates kind of what has to happen to keep moving forward.
Sometimes the cliches mentioned where for the seniors it's quote unquote their team. What ways do you think that they might have kind of added in their own thumbprint to the way this roster is put together that might be a little bit different from what happened last year with Maria and Katie and Wingnut and Bree? Well,
these two in particular, Jackie and Morgan and Curry, are all more speedier players, and I think they're have always been known for the front part of the batting order, and so I think their thumbprints are a little bit different. They're not, but they're both capable of hitting home runs, and Curry is definitely capable of some power. So I just think, and they're both outfielders, so they're just, they kind of play different positions than the ones we lost. But I think their thumbprint will be just, try to help this team succeed the same as the others.
For the juniors, and you've had a case where you don't have juniors that have all been there for 2 years. You have, obviously, Colleen Smith at first base and Dom Ficara, who at pitcher both started off at Hofstra, now here at Kutztown. So it's not a case where you've had necessarily players who have been there both of the years, the first 2 years, in that World Series type setting. But you do have a case where you have had some who are juniors who have been there first 2 years. Overall, how is the junior class kind of standing out to help out those seniors as kind of the upper half in terms of class as a roster?
Well, in terms of the two that came from Hofstra, Dom and Kyle. First off, Hofstra is a top-notch Division I program. Bill Edwards runs a tough ship, and so they came in here, I think, with a good foundation of discipline and what's expected to get to national level games. And then we got, Mary coming back, who has had 2 years of experience and gotten us to, has had those 2 years of being in the World Series. So obviously she doesn't know anything different. So hopefully that's going to work in our favor, and she'll expect that. And so I think the two came from a program we were fortunate enough to get that was a top-notch program at a higher level than Division II. And then Mary, has been a great pitcher for us, freshman, sophomore year.
Now moving on to the sophomore class, you had a lot of sophomores as freshmen last year contribute. Danny Cienko moved to second base late in the year, really kind of helped to spark out that close of the regular season to the postseason, with her providing defense from there. Obviously what Rachel did, kind of being a utility player all around, whether it was pinch running or helping out in the outfield, getting those key situations done, and really, solid contributions from freshmen. Lindsay Kelly stands out as well. What really do you kind of see from the sophomores? Because I didn't even mention them all, but obviously what they did last year to kind of help that push at the end of the year really got contributions from everyone who was on the roster last year.
Yeah, I think they all got their feet wet. They weren't all starters. By the end, Cienko was starting, but a lot of the year she didn't, so I think they're all really anxious to get more playing time. Cienko, we're hoping to be one of our strongest infielders, and she's going to be at the shortstop position. Rachel right now is moving into the second base position, although if a freshman starts, getting a little, more comfortable, she may go into the outfield. Tex is going to be starting at catcher, and she's, which is Beth Kelly, obviously. She's a big, strong girl. She helped us with some big key hits, home runs in playoff games. So she got her feet wet in, pretty pressure situations and did it all right. So we're looking forward to that. Schauder's a power hitter, and can obviously help us offensively. Donoffi, who was redshirted last year, so people don't know her, is a nice outfielder for us, and good speed, someone we can use for pinch run. So we're pretty happy with that class. It's a decent size, and I just think they are a class that are really willing to do whatever it takes to help their team win.
Now, obviously, one of the biggest benefits of making it to the Final Four, basically, more or less, unofficially the last 2 years. We don't officially call it the Final Four, but it's been the Final Four, as you've been again, a semifinalist 2 years ago and runner-up last year. Big thing about that is getting national exposure, and you get a chance to kind of see a real strong recruiting class coming, and that's the case here with the freshmen this year. You got to obviously see them in the fall. What has really stood out, and who are some of the names that we can expect to really provide a big factor for Kutztown softball in 2014?
Marka Ballard is a gal from California who can play really third baseman, short, and catch. So she has a lot of experience playing a lot of travel ball. I think, she's going to be a starter for, to begin with, and hopefully help us. And she's got a good bat, at least is what we saw in the fall. We have two pitchers that have joined us, well, three actually, Savannah Neritz, Demi Murray, and Brittany Guerreri. So now we've, added to our pitching staff, where last year we were pretty limited, so everybody had to be healthy, and when they weren't, we saw some downsides, middle of the season when Mary went down and couldn't pitch for 2 weeks, and Dom had to throw all the games. So now we got, a little bit more depth there that we think is very important, and the pitchers look very good in preseason. Ashley Lechner is a, backup second baseman at this point to Rachel, but I like her glove, I like her hands, and she's pretty explosive. So, we're hoping to get her time. And we have Marissa Lindquist, who can start in the outfield as a good hitter, a good speed, can, pinch run for us. So what I think we have with this whole group is I just think we have a good, well-rounded group of athletes that can play some different positions. So if we suffer some injuries, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Now, obviously, one big factor of last year, by postseason, you had 15 players on the roster, 10 of them returning. Big factor is when you have a bunch of freshmen coming in with such a tight-knit group, is how do they kind of acclimate just from a chemistry and just player to player perspective? What have you seen from that dynamic that has made it more seamless than people might expect? Because at least from my perspective, seeing the team around since the fall, it seems like the freshmen have been able to acclimate very easily in terms of the personalities with the players who are coming back.
Yeah, I think our returners are just, good people, and they care about people's feelings. And so I think it's been, a good transition for the freshmen. They always, have their different issues, not even to do with softball when your first year away at college, and they're doing very well. I think the chemistry that I see, I like at this point. You never really see problems till maybe the middle of the season if people are playing or aren't playing, where they might get a little, feel like they should have more playing time. But right in the beginning is when we really throw everybody out there, and then we see how performances, come about, and then we just make our decisions when we hit our league. So, overall, I think the camaraderie and the personality of the team is good.
Let's talk a little bit about the PSAC. As again, Adam Dobrovolsky here with softball head coach Judy Laws, and difference, obviously, in terms of the structure of the conference itself because of the realignment this year. The conference as a whole adds in Seton Hill and Pitt Johnstown. For softball, that means going from 3 divisions to 2 and 8 teams in each division this year. You add in Mansfield, you add in Lock Haven. It looks like a very stacked east half of this conference, and Shippensburg's returning a lot of their players. They went 31-13 last year, hosted the regional last year. Bloomsburg, obviously, for people who followed Kutztown softball last year, they were a real strong competitor, and although Kate Payne's graduating for the Huskies, they return a lot of players who will be seniors this year. Westchester, you guys obviously defeated them in super regionals, so we know what they can do. Really, what's going to be the challenge for this team over, I'd say, the next month and a half to be in a position come PSAC part of the season to really be in stride and compete from the get-go?
I think the two sayings that you heard a lot last year, and you're going to hear them again this year, is going to be stay the course, and it's going to be grind it out. And grind it out really that much more, because instead of like 12 divisional games, we're going to have 28. And that's a lot of games in a short period of time. I think pitching is going to be huge. Who stays healthy? You can't get down if you have a bad game or a bad weekend. You got to just, jump right back on the bus and get ready to go. And so, I'm hoping the past experiences they've had, getting to where we got and things that they had to go through is going to, help them, because we're going to definitely, this is a harder league. And, Bloomsburg, Mansfield, and Lock Haven coming in are very, very strong teams. And I do agree that the East has, I think, a stronger pool of people. And at any day, I think anybody can beat each other. So it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be, for people that love to watch softball, I think it's going to be really enjoyable. For coaches, we'll be choking here and there, but I think it's just, I don't think anything's going to come easy. You got to just have your kids prepared to go play ball every day, no matter who they're playing.
Obviously, this weekend the season begins in Pembroke. You've began the season, I believe, for the 5th year in a row this year. Going to get to go down to Tennessee for a tournament at Tusculum 2 weeks, I believe, from now. And then, obviously, the spring break involves a trip to Salem, back at the site of the Division II National Championships last year. And then, of course, to the NTC games down in Florida. What importance is it just to kind of use those early season tournaments and trips to kind of put everything together? It's not just chemistry. It's not just finding out who's playing well physically and who's working well with who, but I think a lot of times it's also a good chance to see what else is kind of all around Division II, and it gets the players a chance to really get a look of something beyond just what they're focusing on in Pennsylvania, because a lot of the other sports, the season goes so quick where they might not have a chance to see anybody but PSAC teams. So what advantage is it to kind of get out there early in February while there's still, we're looking out of your office, still snow out there, and obviously for Wednesday a chance of more snow as we have this interview on a Tuesday. It's really a good chance to kind of get away from all that and actually get some green grass and get on the softball field. So how do these tournaments kind of help to get everything together?
Well, first off, we started January 12th, so after 3 weeks inside kids want to go play a game, right? So that's nice. And then just having a trip where you're going away, you're in a hotel, they're getting to, afford a room, they're getting to know each other. Everybody's excited. Start of a season, you know how that always goes. And then, again, like because we start early, we come back, we're probably back inside, and then boom, another 2 weeks. Oh, we're all excited. We have another trip. And I think it lets them, like as coaches, we pretty much know the national pulse. We're all over it. They start to see, nobody heard of Tusculum until now. We're going to play Tusculum or UNC Pembroke, and then they go 4 or 5. Oh, we know Salem. Some of the schools that are down there, they might not have, because they're not on top of it like that. But now when we travel, they start to get an idea of, this is who this is who that is. I think it gives them, when they have to go into a tournament or postseason and play a team in, that's out of your region, it's not that big of a surprise. It's like, oh yeah, so we played teams in this region. Oh, we beat the number, we played Armstrong Atlantic and they're in the World Series. So I think that it's big for just kind of mental maturity of being a player.
And finally, Coach, one more question here to kind of wrap things up. For you, for Coach Don Justice, Larry Chester, obviously the off-season work, the workload hasn't stopped over the break. But what might be able to help to just kind of get back in that rhythm, even though it is 2 weeks between games, over the first month and a half? What good is it just to kind of get back in that routine of just prepping for the next opponent, as opposed to just kind of prepping for the sake of, training and getting the fundamentals down? How does that kind of get you guys excited for the year?
Well, competition. So it's what we all work for, and it's for game day. So it just is exciting, so you don't have to really do anything. We're all ready to start. Can't believe another year's here already. It's flown by because we are working so hard, doing fundraisers like showcases and Christmas camps, and it's one event after another because we're just trying to do everything we can to try to get back to where, we've been in the past, and make sure that we're dotting every I and crossing every T administratively with the program, hands-on with the kids with the program, academically with the program, that they're all ready to, be successful in the classroom as well as the field, because we know that all affects everything come May.
And, obviously the excitement will just be beginning this weekend. Obviously it's going to be a nice chance for everyone to eventually get a chance to, when hopefully the snow melts and it gets warmer towards March, get back out there to North Campus Field and get a chance to catch out Kutztown softball back-to-back years in what we like to call the Division II World Series, but what's officially known as the D2 National Championships. Head Coach Judy Laws, thank you again for joining me, and best of luck this upcoming weekend in Pembroke, North Carolina.
Thanks, and we'll take all the luck we can get.
Again, the Golden Bears are going to get their season underway against UNC Pembroke at 2 p.m. We'll see what the Golden Bears can do, building off of last year. They finished the year 37-22, so 23-21 on a 14-game winning streak, 12 of those games in the postseason. But obviously the transition from 4 graduating seniors who all played a very pivotal role in the team's development. When you look at the defending PSAC Player of the Year, Bree Knipe, she graduates. You have catcher Katie Lynch graduate, but she will be actually helping out the team early this year. We'll talk about that when we return from the break. But also Maria Iskro and Nicole Wingnut Henninger, they all will be missed on the field this upcoming year. But a chance for some new faces, some transition, and we'll see what happens with the Golden Bears in 2014. When we return from the break, here on KUR, we'll hear from the players, and we'll talk a little bit more about the 2014 KU softball season. Stay tuned for more Golden Bear Beat on KUR. And welcome back here on the Golden Bear Beat on KUR. Adam Dobrovolsky here in the studios, continuing to preview the 2014 Kutztown softball season, as the Golden Bears looking to continue their progress in the national ranks. 2 years ago, finishing as a semifinalist in the Division II Softball National Championships. That took place in Louisville, Kentucky last year. In Salem, Virginia, Kutztown finishing as national runners-up, losing in extra innings to Central Oklahoma 5-2 in what was a thrilling game to cap off a thrilling postseason. But being close is not enough. And, well, just to keep it as simple and sweet as it could be, the team goal this year, winning a national championship. You want to take that next step regardless of how much success you've had recently. You want to get to that pinnacle. And the Golden Bears beginning their season today against UNC Pembroke and then eventually Francis Marion. But let's hear from some of the players, some of the key factors that will go into this season. First and foremost, with the 4 seniors graduating last year, Bree Knipe, Nicole Henninger, Katie Lynch, Maria Iskro, you're going to have a new senior core step in. And the 3 true seniors for the Golden Bears this year, you have Morgan Booth, Jackie Hetzler, and Steph Curry. Now, Colleen Smith is able to possibly have one more year of eligibility, athletically speaking. So the hope there is that she will have a chance to have 2 more years here at the program. But really, for the 3 seniors that have been here in the Kutztown program through the years, Colleen came over from Hofstra, transferred here to Kutztown. That's her 2nd year with the Golden Bears. But for Hetzler, for Booth, and for Curry, they've been in with this program through the years. They've been to back-to-back appearances in the quote-unquote World Series for Division II softball. They know what it's like. And I got to talk to both Morgan and Jackie, get some of the things that really do factor in importantly for the seniors. I asked Jackie Hetzler the role of the 3 seniors this year.
I think this year as seniors we took a whole different take on what we want as captains to come out as and how we want our underclassmen and also like juniors to see us as captains. We try to keep everything more of a even like playing field as by ranking. Try not to really put in like their face that we're seniors. But we do try to take control of everyone. Like if they make mistakes, we try to sit down with them, talk to them about what they need to change, and we try to stay very positive with our team.
Also, I asked Jackie her thoughts on how the seniors feel about the urgency of this year being their final hurrah at KU as a KU softball player.
It's so upsetting being a senior, and I know this is like my last hurrah, and it's also the rest of our seniors' last chance to really be the best, and all we have left now is to win it all. We've gone further and further every year, and that's the only goal we have left is to win the national championship. So there's definitely much urgency to kind of get on our team's butts to really get them to work hard and see what it is that our goal and in the end is and make that their goal.
For Hetzler, obviously wanting to continue to improve year to year. That's really the goal for any player, especially at the collegiate level. Last year, Hetzler finished with a .292 batting average, 2 home runs, 26 RBIs, 10 doubles. But as we heard during the interview with Coach Law, she really is to help provide that spark in the front of the lineup along with her fellow senior and Morgan Booth. And I asked Booth, who last year finished 2nd on the team in batting average at .354, led the team with 22 stolen bases, actually led the PSAC altogether with 68 hits. What has really changed from her first year in the Kutztown program all the way now to what will be her final year as a senior?
I think it's kind of like a subconscious thing. Like when you're a freshman, you're more timid, you're scared, you don't really know what to expect. But going through 3 years, like having 3 years on your back, you have like a new kind of confidence on your shoulders, I guess you could say, which I think is definitely going to help players like me and Jack.
And certainly being able to provide that firm control of the front of the lineups really going to help out, because obviously with 4 of your players graduating who were in your starting lineup last year, that's nearly half of the lineup. You want to make sure that the first few players set the tone. You have the potential of Hetzler or Booth to lead off, the other to bat second. That could eventually lead to the 3 spot in Colleen Smith, who last year led the team offensively. .364 batting average, 14 home runs, 53 RBIs, 11 doubles, slugged 85. Really, she was able to start off very strong and then able to finish off the year more drawing walks, and that helped the rest of the lineup to pick things up. But I asked Colleen really her thoughts on now year 2, because last year, like it is any year, to switch over from one program to another, it's a grind, and sometimes by the end of that first year, your first full year at a new university as an athlete, it starts to not necessarily taper down a little bit, but you start to get mental fatigue as much as physical fatigue. So I asked Colleen her thoughts on a second year and having a full year under her belt already.
Personally, it helps out a lot. I feel like I know where my spot on this team is. I know that I hope to lead my team as best as I can, and I feel better knowing that I can help the incoming freshmen because I was kind of there in that spot last year. So what to expect and how to get better every single day and make it so you feel like you're at home.
Certainly, if those three together can continue to keep that thing going up front in the front third, that should certainly help out. But the lineup, you figure, will see some different things. It might not necessarily be that Colleen will bat third. She might bat fourth, might switch things around and see what part of the lineup really works together in unison. But obviously, you need to see what goes on as well with the pitching. And for Kutztown, the pitching last year was shared by Dominique Fakera and Mary Koshinski. Both of them are juniors this year. Koshinski, 2 years in the Kutztown program. Fakera moved over from Hofstra last year, was her first year in the program. And I asked Dominique her thoughts on really what has changed from year 1 to year 2. And really, you kind of get a sense that it's a very similar thing to what we heard from Colleen Smith. Some changes, but in the same breath, confidence of having that second year under her belt.
I just feel more like myself than I did last year. Towards the end of the season last year, I felt back to normal, but at the beginning it didn't really. So this year coming out, I feel a lot more confident and strong, and worked on a different pitches too to mix in. So it helps my variety of pitches.
Last year, Fakera finished with a PSAC best 21 victories, had 13 losses, 2.42 ERA. Mary Koshinski, 15-9, 2.56 ERA. By the end of last year, it really became apparent how those two could work together in a 1-2 punch. Throughout the postseason, Fakera would get the starts, Koshinski would come in relief, and that helped Kutztown to those 12 consecutive postseason victories. Getting her stronger, Fakera, and getting Koshinski stronger, obviously going to be a big factor. And for Koshinski, one of the key things has been training. The softball team has been very active in off-season training, which is led by one of the assistant coaches in Larry Chester. We all know him as LC. He's done a fantastic job with numerous Kutztown athletic programs here, getting them all in shape. And Koshinski explained some of the benefits of the off-season training.
A lot more intensity, that's a big part. We've been doing a lot more exercises in the gym that we didn't do last year, which is really good, and it has improved our team thus far in the season. And I think we still got a lot more ways to improve, but we've been doing really good in the gym.
Now, a little bit more to hear about the training of Coach Chester and really how it's impacted the team. I asked Morgan Booth about it as well.
That's a big thing that LC stresses. He always tells us you can YouTube workout videos and work out on your own, but to have somebody messing with you mentally, breaking you down, building you back up positively, and to do it as a team, it's definitely a good thing. Coach would say that too, comparing it to when we didn't have LC to when we do. And he's definitely more involved this year with our team. He's came every day to preseason practice, and we've had a station with him every day.
That physical train is certainly going to help out mentally, especially with the grind through the season. As you perhaps heard from Coach Laws, the PSAC is changed to 2 divisions. You add in Lock Haven, you add in Bloomsburg, you add in Mansfield. There's going to be 4 games apiece against those teams. There's 12 new games, all against quality teams. And, Kutztown They're going to have Westchester, who they faced multiple times last year. They're going to have them again. They're going to have Shippensburg, who actually beat Kutztown all 4 times in the regular season last year and hosted the Atlantic Regional. Although they faded a little bit late, they were a young team last year, 31-13, returning most of their players. This is a conference that's not going to have any easy out, because even East Stroudsburg and Millersville, who we didn't mention during my interview with Coach Laws and hasn't mentioned until now, they both can get wins against teams in the division. It's going to be a very tough schedule to go through, and you like that because obviously it's going to prepare you for the national level, being able to know how to play against that quality type of team, and obviously being able to go to Salem, where you will see a rematch with West Virginia State, going to Tusculum, seeing some teams from the South, Pembroke as well, and I'm sure whatever games are scheduled for the NTC College Spring Games, there's going to be some quality opponents in there as well. There's a chance to get a taste of what is there on the national level. You want to make sure that you're in good shape. What you also want to make sure you have, though, is good depth. And for pitching, it's going to be a big improvement for the Golden Bears. Last year, pretty much 3 pitchers for Kutztown. Vaquera and Koshinski were the 2 primary players, and then in case of any emergency or any switch-up needed, Krista Schauder would come in. And Schauder did a good job in her relief appearances. 4 times she appeared, 1-0 record, 1.75 ERA. But with the freshman class, you add in a lefty in Demi Murray. You add in some more depth in Savannah Nearance, as well as Brittany Guerreri, and those 2 can play other positions as well. They won't be just playing pitcher, but they can kind of basically fill in the role of what Krista did last year and allow Krista Schauder also now this year to focus a little bit more on helping out the lineup, because she did a good job with that as well. So that adds in a little bit more depth, a little bit more versatility. And I asked Dominique Vaquera, really, how does that depth help her and Mary out, and how that really helps out the pitching unit as a whole?
It helps a lot because now we don't have to worry as much, considering we only had like 2 pitchers last year. So now we know it gives us more time to take care of ourselves for the whole season instead of, last year, which was you had to play through anything no matter what.
Now you obviously have a positive from that. Not necessarily negative, but one thing that leads to speculation anytime when you have a strong senior class graduate and then a big freshman class come in is what's going to be the adjustment level? What's going to be the change in terms of really how the team as a whole handles business? Obviously, you know that the seniors are going to instill the winning mentality. The coaches are going to instill the winning mentality, but the question is, how quickly will it translate over? And really, how many things are going to change in terms of just the on-the-field dynamic? As Coach Laws mentioned, you have pretty much an entire new infield. You have Bree Knight, who was your shortstop last year, graduate. Nicole Henninger was your third baseman. She graduated. Katie Lynch was your catcher. There's obviously a lot of new beginnings going on with this team, and I talked to Rachel Laws, and a freshman last year, a sophomore this year, obviously has the experience with her mother being the head coach of Kutztown, that dynamic. She talks about really the overall new beginning for this 2014 team.
I mean, it's a whole new group, so everyone's been working really hard. No one really knows, what to expect. I mean, we had such a great ending to a season, but we lost, some key players. So I think everyone's just trying to find their fit so that we can do or try to do just as well as we did last year.
Furthermore, she talked about really the lessons that could be learned for the freshmen this year, and how sophomores like her, like Danielle Cianco, like Lindsay Kelly, like Krista Schauder, how they all can help out those freshmen understand kind of the rules and the ropes of Kutztown softball.
We tell them what we went through, and we can relate to them really easily. We share with them what it was like to be there and hope that motivates them. And kind of just by setting an example, they kind of just start to blend in and adapt to what we do here.
And one other big factor is just buying in overall to the philosophy of the team. And that was something that sophomore catcher Lindsay Kelly mentioned. But her role in particular is going to be a little bit bigger because of the switch from Katie Lynch graduating now to Kelly at catcher. She's going to have an important role in the team's transition. And obviously, having Katie Lynch back early this year as a volunteer assistant coach to help out the transition is big. And Kelly talked about the role so far that Katie Lynch has been able to provide helping that transition.
Well, I think it's great actually because she's my mentor. If I have a question, I can always come to her. It's not like I can always go to the coaches and ask them. So she's always there to help and guide us through.
Now, obviously, being able to get the rules of the ropes, just having that reminder there at practice is important. Knowing, when to have your pitchers give certain things. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone with the coaches will early on call the games, but down the line, you figure when the comfort level is there, there's a chance for Tex, as we call her, to call the games. Chances, obviously, to work with the pitchers and kind of set up the defense as a whole, look to see when teams might be stealing and such things like that. Obviously, having Lynch there to kind of help your transition in practice is big. But I asked Lindsay just her thoughts on really what's going to be personally the key to the switch for her and what's going to be the one key to help out the team make a successful transition.
Communication, most definitely. Talking on the field, because we have our defense, we have our offense. It's just all communication and mending together and working together.
Obviously, that mending together is going to be key, and that's kind of our final theme for this team. Last year, Kutztown finished with 15 players in that postseason, and really just traveling with the team through the postseason, whether it be to Shippensburg, back here at Kutztown, and then eventually to Salem, Virginia, really got to see exactly how close this team got. And obviously, when you have a lot of freshmen come in, you have 10 returning players, and overall a freshman class of 9, if you want to include the redshirt and Stefanofi, although she, I believe, already has transitioned pretty much well in. So we look at it really, she was an 11th returning player, so to say, in terms of the chemistry. 10 returning players on the field. How will those other 8 true freshmen work in together chemistry-wise? And I asked that to Mary Koshinsky, her thoughts so far on how those 8 true freshmen have been able to add to the team chemistry from those 11 who were with the 2013 program.
I think the freshmen that we have this year have really good attitudes, and we all pretty much get along really well. So I think they've blended really well with our team compared to other years when freshmen came in.
And again, those 8: Ashley Lechner, Demi Murray, Savannah Nearance, Justine Rossi, Marissa Lindquist, Lisa Lawson, Brittany Guerreri, and Marka Ballard. I figure all of them are going to play an important role for this team and being able to really keep the standard of Kutztown softball going, but also adding in really to the family factor. And that was something I asked Rachel Laws about. Obviously, she has literal blood family on the team in terms of coaching, but also really what she sees in the players as a family factor.
We spend so much time together, so it's almost like you're sisters. I mean, sometimes you're fighting, sometimes you love each other, but regardless, we have each other's back at the end of the day, and that just comes from, bonding and doing LCs and working together, and you learn to put up with everything, and we've actually gotten really close, so it's pretty cool.
And one final factor, something that the team should know about from last year, that's going to be the consistency. The Golden Bears, due to some inconsistencies in the middle of last year, had to fight just to get into the PSAC postseason. It's going to be tougher this year as the divisions split. The way the East looks is going to be very tough. So the consistency is going to be a big factor this year, and that's something I asked Colleen Smith about.
It's not just preseason and it's not just conference play. We have to be at this high standard and play at this high level all throughout. If we play a team that's maybe weaker or a team that's a lot better than us, we still have to be at a consistent level, and we need to play each game as if it's a national championship game.
So that for the Golden Bears will be something they will try to apply throughout what's going to be pretty much around a 50 or so game regular season. Now things change, obviously, due to weather. and other such things. So we'll see exactly how many games there'll be by season's end, but it's going to be a season where hopefully for the Golden Bears, the consistency is a bigger theme than ebbs and tides, and then eventually towards season end, it will get right back to where it was last year in position to make a postseason run. Okay, we're going to step off to another break here on the Golden Bear Beat, but when we return on KUR, we'll take a look around the rest of Kutztown Athletics. This concludes our 2014 softball preview, but again, the season begins today against UNC Pembroke and Francis Marion. You can get live stats updates on those games on KUBears.com. But for now, we head off to a break. We'll talk KU basketball, bowling, wrestling, and much more when we return on the Golden Bear Beat. Stay tuned. And welcome back here on the Golden Bear Beat. Adam Dobrovolsky here in the KUR studios as we take a whip around KU Athletics, update you on what's going on in the winter sports of Kutztown Athletics. We'll begin things off with KU men's and women's basketball. This past weekend at East Stroudsburg, the KU men's basketball team on the road to face, at the time, the 6th-ranked team in the nation, at the time, one of 2 unbeatens left in Division II. And this game was a close one. It was an exciting one and went down to the stretch. Kutztown was down by 4 with about 5 minutes left to go, but East Stroudsburg was able to finish the game off, able to make a few plays close as Kutztown was able to get it as close as 59-55 with 7 left to go. Neither team scored for about 2.5 minutes. Then Matt Tobin with the layup made it 61-55. Then after a missed layup from ESU, a tip-in from Zechariah Runkle made it 63-55. Kutztown would hit 1 free throw and make it a 7-point game, but East Stroudsburg late, they would get in a 3-pointer from West Grant, 69-58 with 2:17 left. They would hang on to win 75-67. Only the 3rd single-digit victory for the Warriors, who are now 3rd ranked in the nation, and due to a loss yesterday by Tarleton State, ESU, the lone remaining undefeated team in Division II basketball. There are, in fact, only 4 teams in all the divisions in NCAA basketball who are still undefeated. Wichita State and Syracuse in Division I, Cabrini College, which is located near Philadelphia, in Division III, and then, of course, East Stroudsburg in Division II. Next up for the Golden Bears, they will face Mansfield tonight. Tip-off at 7:30 on the Golden Bear Network. If you can make it out at Keystone Arena, please do so. We'll have the Golden Bear Honors, and we'll have some special things going on, hosted by KUSSI. Meanwhile, for the women, they lost to East Stroudsburg 80-56, despite 4 different Golden Bears scoring in double digits. Natalia Lee had 15 points. So did Kelsey Watson, adding 12 from Jess Harvey, 10 from Alyssa Bonenberger. But the win for East Stroudsburg. Both men's and women's basketball are now 6-13 overall. The men 4-5 at 6th in the PSAC East. The women 3-6, also 6th in the PSAC East. The women will tip off against Mansfield today at 5:30 p.m. Meanwhile, KU Wrestling won with ease last Friday against Millersville, 31-9. Evan Yanilevich made his return from injury, got a dominant pin victory in 1 minute and 4 seconds for the fall. Also, you had a technical fall from Ziad Haddad in 6 minutes and 27 seconds. Those were the 2 most dominant victories for Kutztown, but she also had 14-12 victory for Bo Candelaria in the 165. He's now 4-0 at that weight class. Andrew Kinney won 11-0. Brandon Clark now with his team-high 16th victory as he won in the 197, 3-2. Next up for KU Wrestling, they'll be in action having 2 dual meets on Saturday, one in the PSAC against Seton Hill at 3 p.m. and then also in Greensburg, PA against Alderson Brodus at 5 p.m. Bowling competed in the Red Flash Invitational this past weekend, went 3-1 on Friday, 4-1 on Saturday, and 1-1 on Sunday. And Kutztown looking strong overall this season as they did well in the Red Flash Invitational, finished in 2nd place. overall, and now for the season, 56-30, and looking like a at least top 3 or 4 team in the NEC, as they'll be eventually preparing for that next NEC meet, as that will be coming up in Dover, Delaware tomorrow, heading into Saturday. So we'll keep a lookout with what's going on for KU bowling this upcoming weekend. You can log on to KUBears.com and get a link to some live video for that tournament coming up this week, as that will be really important, as it's actually, the Capital Classic. The next meet for Kutztown will be the 3rd NEC Conference meet, but Kutztown will see some NEC teams, including Fairleigh Dickinson and Adelphi. They'll see Delaware State, who's hosting it, as well as St. Francis, New York, and North Carolina Central for the Friday matches. We'll see what will happen for the Saturday matches. Indoor track and field this past week competed at the Bison Open at Bucknell University, and the men and women saw some PSAC qualifying times, 13 for the women. The men also had qualifying times, including Zach Fleming taking 2nd place in the 1 mile and had the 4th best time in KU history. Next up for indoor track and field, they will be doing 2 different meets this weekend. They will be at the Valentine's Day Invite in Boston for their primary action. And then to kind of wrap things up, swimming competed this past weekend at the East Stroudsburg Invite, and this the final tune-up before the PSAC Championships, which will take place in York, PA from February 20th to 23rd. Kutztown competed against 4 teams to really get things closed out, and their final tune-up in terms of meet. They'll obviously be practicing before the PSAC Championships, but you had Elizabeth Metz finish the 200 individual medley for the first time in her career and took home the gold in 2 minutes and 20.37 seconds. Also, you had Caitlin Davies and Caitlin Falguera finish 3rd place in events. Davies in the 50 free in 25.01 seconds, and that was also a qualifying mark. And then Falguera finished 3rd in the 200 backstroke. Zoe Sianis, meanwhile, had her first ever time competing in the 200 free, and she finished in 4th place. Jess Blyler finished in the 200 back in 8th place, and that was her first time trying it out. So we have some qualifying events. Blyler, Davies, Natalie Carr, Sianis having qualifying times. We'll get you a preview of the PSAC Championships coming up in one of the next 2 weeks for the Golden Bear Beat here on the Golden Bear Network. But we're wrapping things up here in the KUR studios, reminding you what's coming up for the rest of this week as softball begins its season today. Pembroke and Francis Marion, they will place UNC Pembroke and Concord tomorrow. And then also of note, tonight you have Mansfield men's women's basketball doubleheader begins at 5:30 on the Golden Bear Network. But if you can make it out to Keystone Arena, help to pack the gym, defend the den, as there'll be Golden Bear honors as well, honoring the standout athletes through the fall season. Wrestling, we already mentioned what they'll do this weekend, along with bowling. One other thing to note for indoor track and field on Wednesday, you have the Golden Bear Multis, and then men's and women's basketball will be at Cheney on Wednesday. On Saturday, they will be at Westchester. The Saturday tip-off begins at 1 p.m. for the women, the men at 3 p.m. on the Golden Bear Network, and then 6 and 8 for the Cheney games, also on the Golden Bear Network. That'll do it for this edition. Coming up in the next few weeks, we will preview swimming in the PSAC Championships. We will preview the 2014 baseball season as well. And then coming up in March, we will preview the outdoor track and field seasons, the women's lacrosse seasons, and then get you all up to date with what's returning for the tennis season. So a lot of exciting stuff coming on. Golf as well will be returning within the next month or so. A lot of exciting things coming up here on the Golden Bear Beat. It's on every Wednesday at noon. We'll be in the studios again next week for that episode. Until then, this is M. Dobrovolsky signing out how we always do Go Bears, go.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Golden Bear Beat. Make sure to stay updated on everything involving Kutztown University athletics at KUBears.com and tune in for weekly broadcasts every Thursday at noon on KUR.